Okay, and away we go. We are moving on to lesson 14. Just going to double check, make sure everything's working. I had to reset a few things, so please let me know in Teams if something's not working. All right, we're moving on to lesson 14. I've left this here because I still had a few people who were struggling to join the team Repellent. So if you still haven't done that, I'm going to leave this here for a little bit longer to make sure everybody has it. But we should be completed now up to the end of quiz number 5, loops. So assignment 14, 15, and loops, you should have that finished. We're going to move on to lesson 14, lists. Okay, I have an old video here for you to look through if you want to. With lists, what we're creating is a variable that has a group of somethings in it, a group of data types inside of it. You can put floats, you can put strings, you can put integers, you can put a group of things into that variable. Okay, so I have an example of one I created here. I call it names, and then I put 3 names in there. Again, I did a poor job in using the word names because I use name later on. But it is important to remember that the variable names that we've created here is different than the variable name if you didn't have the S. So there's 2 different things going on there with those 2 different variable names. Right now, when we're using a list, and this is important to identify because when we use dictionaries, we use something different. Okay, so when we are instantiating a list, we use square braces. Okay, we just use regular braces. That's these ones here. All right, because these are strings, we're going to include quotation marks, and each entry into that list is separated by a comma. All right, so I have Luke in quotation marks, comma, Anakin, quotation marks, comma, Yoda, quotation marks. That is okay, I think I'm back for YouTube. If I'm not, send me a message here. I can record this and send it to you anyway, so if it doesn't work, please let me know. All right, so I'm going to create my variable, my list variable, called names. And the value that I'm going to give it is inside of a regular brace, and I say Luke. It's a string, so I need quotations. I say Luke. I say Anakin, and I say Yoda. All right, so I've instantiated my list, but my program's not going to do anything because all it is an existing list there. It's not doing anything. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have it print the length of my list. So when I run my program, and remember this is not an index, this is just indicating exactly how many objects are inside that list, and there are 3. 1, 2, 3. So the len function provides that without having to worry about the index. Okay, now if I wanted to print my list, I just say print. I can't remember if I need, yeah. Print names, and it goes through and prints all of them. The thing that's, it's not very clean when it prints them because it includes the braces, quotations, and commas. All right, so we want to try and clean that up a little bit in the way we print it. The other thing that we can do is we can append a list. So if we have a list, you're using a list for whatever reason, and at some point you want to add an item to that list, the syntax for that is just names.append, and then in brackets you put in the new item. So if I want to add the new one here, I just say names append and now when I print len names and print names. All right, this is also important data to have as well. When I run this code on line 2, it prints out the length of the list. The length of the list is 3, and it still is 3 when I run it here, because the length of the list did not become 4 until line 5. On line 5, it becomes, the length of the list becomes 4, so it's going to print it out as 4 after that point. It remembers where you are in the code, because remember, the computer just operates one line at a time. So it's not going to realize on line 2 that line 5 has increased the size of this list. According to the computer, that list only has 3 items in it until line 5. And you can see that it prints the same thing twice with the different appended name on the end. Okay, that is appending. Now, if we want to print the names individually, we can use an index to do that. So if I say print names 1, this is going to print the name or the data type at the 1 position inside the list. Now remember, this is an index, and when we use an index, it always starts at 0. So this one is not going to print out Luke, it's going to print out Anakin. Okay, hopefully, or I'm going to look like an idiot. Okay, so it prints out Anakin for us. Now this is what we want. It's much cleaner. This is what the way you should be outputting. We don't want all the extra syntax in there that we don't really need. Okay, this is how we want it nice and clean. But it's not printing all of them. So we have to figure out how we can print all of them. Just like when we did splices, we can say names, brace, 0 to 2. Now when we run it, we're getting closer. I didn't realize that it brought back all of this stuff when you printed more than one item. Anyway, I'll still show you how to do that and print it cleaner without all that stuff in there. It's just interesting that when you index it with only 1, it doesn't do that. And the next thing that we have to know is that if we leave any of these spots blank, so if I say 1-0 inside my braces, and let's leave the second one blank. I just say 1:blank. It's going to start at the 1 position, which is Anakin, and it's going to print to the end of the list. And vice versa, if I leave the first one blank, it's going to start at the first spot, and it's going to print until the spot that I told it to end at. All right? Now, good. That covers that. Now, here's where we can use loops. This is the way that we're going to most often print out parts of a list. All right? We're going to use a for loop, and it's going to look very similar to the way we printed out the for loop in the loops lesson. All right? We're going to combine the last lesson and lists to print out an index for each item in the index on its own line. So we're going to use the code for index in range. And remember, all for loops have 3 parameters included. They have a start point, an end point, or a termination point, and they have an increment. If your increment is just going to be 1, you can leave it blank. So here, our start point is the index point 0. Our end point is the len names. So it's the end of the list. Then we print out our for loop so that we actually get all of the items printed in. So let's delete this and go for index in range 0 len names. That's an O. That is some top-notch coding there. Then we need our colon because something else is happening on the next line. So this creates our loop going from line to line. This is what we want it to do inside that loop. We want it to print names inside the index that we created in the loop. So for each time this loop iterates, the first time this loop iterates, it's going to have whatever's in index point 0 as the value of index. Then when we print the index inside of names, it will print the 0 position of our list, which is going to be Luke. Then it's going to go back up to the top because it has not reached the termination point of the loop yet, which is whatever the last item in the list is. So the second time this loop iterates, the value of index is going to be in the 1 position, which is Anakin. It'll print Anakin, come back up to the top because it still hasn't reached the termination point. And so on and so on and so on until it reaches that termination point. Okay, so I get all 3. Oh, I forgot my appended. Okay, and that's the beauty of using len names. Now I don't have to change any index points or anything like that. It's just going to keep going until it reaches the end. And because that append was added on line 2, at this point in the code, the list includes 4 entries, so it includes all of them when it prints. Okay? The second way you can do that, which it's simpler, but I don't think it's as good a way to teach you because you don't understand how the for loop is working, is to just say for name in names print name, and then it's just going to automatically flip through that index, and every item in that index is going to get printed one at a time. We can sort our list, names.sort, and then for name in names print name. So if we come down here, let's do it up here. We can say names dot sort. Make sure that's right. Names dot sort. Okay, and you can see how it changes. When I had this before, when I didn't have this in here, it prints it in the order that it was entered into the list. So I entered Luke first, then Anakin, then Yoda, then Obi-Wan. So it printed it in that order. When I sort it, because it's string, and the computer knows, hey, this is a string, the computer is smart enough to be able to figure out the alphabet, so it knows I'm going to start whichever one comes first in the alphabet. So now it goes in alphabetical order. A-L-O-Y. Right? That's how the sort works. Next one, going into numbers now. So we can put numbers into the list instead of the string, and obviously we're not going to need quotation marks because computers can recognize numbers. So if we say 9 and then 99, '66, 87, and let's change the name of it to score or scores? Scores. And then I say for score in scores. Print. So now when I run that one, it prints it in the order I entered it. 9, 99, 66, 87. That's the order it's entered into the list. So without a sort, that's the way it prints it. If I sort, so if I say scores dot sort and print it again, it now, because the computer can understand the value that a number holds, it sorts them numerically, being smallest first to the largest at the end. Okay, that is the lesson. So from there, stop me if I'm going too fast and if there's questions. From there, we're going to go into the next assignment, which is data lists. I have a video explaining it. Let's go to here. Okay, in this assignment, blah, blah, blah. This one is it doesn't take very long, but it's a little bit confusing. So what I want you to be able to do is to create a list, but inside that list, I want you to include these different data types. So all of these are different data types. All right, so that's a integer. This is a double. This is an operation. This is a Boolean. This is a string. All right, all of these are a different data type. In order to use this, I want you to create a list, and then I want you to print out each item in that list, just like we did with each number in the list or each string, whatever it was that I had. But I want you to print it out, and then I want you to say, this entry is an integer. So it would say 1452 is an integer. 1123 is a float. Okay, so each one I want you to do that. In order to do that, the code that you're going to need is this one right here. Type item. That scans the entry and determines what data type it is in order to create that code. Now this one is a challenging assignment, but it really does not take that long. It's mostly experimentation, trying to figure out the way to get the list to print out. All right, so start by creating your list using these entries, then get this list to print out one at a time, then start working with type item to try and get it to print out in order, including what the data type is for each of these entries. All right, and I understand this one's going to be hard. I'm being vague because I want you to use this assignment because it's the shortest one that we have to do. It takes the least amount of time to try and problem solve through this and figure out how to use it. I'm giving you the code that you need to identify each data type. Now I want you to combine loops, lists, to get it to print out what each thing is. All right? It's going to be very, very short. Your comments are going to be very, very limited. Once you've done that, submit and you are finished. From there, you have a quiz on lists, number 6, and that's it. We have still a large chunk of this class left. An hour is much more than you're going to need to figure this out, but I'm going to challenge you to try and come up with the answer for this one on your own. If you are still working on this assignment tomorrow, and you worked on it for all of this class, then ask me for a hint, and I'll try and point you in the right direction to get you to figure this one out. But I do want you to try and problem solve this one on your own, practice, try different things, trial and error over and over again, see what works best.